Hi, and welcome back to FanCorner, your favorite nerdy, unhinged podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about off campus. And because I'm like a little late to actually recording and putting this on the internet, I did watch it like immediately. But because I'm late doing all that, we're going to skip high mids. We're just going to get right into the main story today. So I think we obviously are all loving the show, even though, like, I know there was like a few moments of a little hallmarky, maybe. But we're all obsessed anyway, right? Like it really captured us all, at least by episode 2. Like I feel like it's everywhere right now. Everyone's talking about it. It was an incredibly successful book to screen adaptation. Like people that didn't read the book, I didn't read the books, are getting into it, etc. But I want to talk about why. And I don't think it's just because the men are really hot. And they are hot, right? A lot of shows have really hot men. And Dean is really hot. Garrett is hot. Like, I'm not saying the muscles aren't fun, but I don't think that's what's like really grabbing our psyche, like across the world right now. Off campus goes so hard, not because the men are hot, but because it is a masterclass in how hot consent is, how much consent adds to a sexual encounter. So obviously there's a lot of examples of this, right? Like, and I'm sure y'all can think of some fairly obvious ones and we'll get into them. But I want to start with the Dean and Allie dancing scene because I think that's where, like, I mean, we're all obviously obsessed with Allie and Dean. Like, I know they were like the favorite couple coming out in this season. For me, that scene was amazing. J-Lo's like posting a TikTok with our girl that played Allie. Like, so much funness is going on here. So we have Allie. She's dancing, right? She's dancing in the club. She is like owning her space, right? She doesn't care that her boyfriend's not there yet. She doesn't care that no one's with her. She is just having the time of her life. Dean walks in the room, immediately clocks her. Immediately clocks her. And is obsessed with the way she's just like, she is enticing, right? Like the way she is taking up space and having so much fun, that joy is contagious. Dean comes over. He's dancing up behind her, right? And then there's that moment, right? They're both like, and it looks really hot. The music's going, right? She like looks back and like they have this like eye contact moment. And I feel like you can tell she's like, oh shit, I have a boyfriend, right? Just like a smidge, right? But like she's still having the time of her life. So she turns around so that they're no longer like kind of more in a grinding, but they were grounded formation. And they're dancing together. He is like watching her really closely, goes in for a kiss. And she goes like this, nuh-uh, not now, mister, and backs it up. And he just like 100% respects that. Like he could have gone into that kiss faster. He could have not been watching for the clues. He could have a lot of things, but because, and we find out later, like he's so into consent, like because Dean is watching for consent, this is a perfect example of how like consent is often in nonverbal cues as well. And you could argue, you could see some guys being like, oh, well, she was into it for a minute, so I'm going to do it anyway or whatever. And it's like, no, like, she was, and then she was like, oh, we're going too far, you know? And like he didn't get angry. I think that's an important thing to know too. Like Dean didn't get angry or feel frustrated. Like he just like still stares at her with this puppy dog face as she walks off the dance floor, right? Like he is almost like maybe even you could argue more captivated by her being able to articulate even non-verbally what she wants. And I think that's in part what makes Dean so hot is that he's watching for these clues and that like that matters to him more than just like a one-off kiss with a hot girl. You know what I mean? Watching for body signals is so key to consent. It's not just verbal. Obviously, Dean and Garrett have a very explicit conversation about consent a few episodes later where this is spelled out directly. And I think it's good that we're seeing like examples of both just like how this can play out and be so hot in real life, but also it getting verbally said. Garrett's wondering, he's feeling nervous about hooking up with Hannah that night. Hannah's asked him to help her achieve an orgasm. He's feeling nervous, so he goes to Dean because obviously Dean's like the campus womanizer. And he's like, how do you make sure girls like, you know what I mean, having a good time? And I'm obsessed that Dean talks a lot about safety. He talks about how she has to feel safe enough to let go in order to have an orgasm, like, and foreplay and all that too. But there's also there has to be trust there, right? And I think that's why it can be difficult, perhaps, sometimes with one-night stands to achieve like real satisfaction. He literally says consent is key. And for her to be able to consent, she has to feel safe. And I was like, what? I posted a screenshot to my Instagram stories because I was like, yes, to see that in a TV show that's this popular, that everyone's talking about, being said that explicitly in a fun TV show. Like, ultimately, this is a really fun TV show, right? This soundtrack is popping. We're all watching it to have a good time, right? We're feeling all these romantic feelings. Like, to have him say, if she doesn't feel safe, she can't consent. And I think, like, that's what's so important about looking for those, like, nonverbal cues and stuff is, like, if you're not feeling safe, then it's coercion. Like, once you, like, tip into that area where you're like, oh, I don't feel comfortable, I don't whatever, and like, the person keeps pushing it on you, then it's coercion. And so it's on both parties to be watching each other to make sure, because consent is, like, it's a dynamic thing, right? I was absolutely obsessed with this conversation. It's exactly the kind of conversation we need to be having, like, as a society, but also just, like, that young people are watching the show, right? And I think, like, at least when oh my God, I sound so old now. When I was growing up, I remember a lot of people being like, I don't want to be asked if I want to be kissed. And, like, there's kind of this, like, pushback. It was right before the Me Too movement when I was in high school. And so there was a lot of just, like, not understanding, like, what the lines were around consent, or when something counted or not as assault. And I think talking to a lot of women who were young with me around that same time, some of the stories that we share with each other, it's very clear that stuff that was going on wasn't consensual, but because we didn't have language to talk about it, we just didn't. And I think, like, that idea that, like, well, I don't want to be asked if I want to be kissed, it's like, first of all, asking can be really hot, right? Like, Dean goes on to say, Hannah asked, he's like, whatever girl, because Garrett didn't admit it was Hannah. Whatever girl that's not Hannah that said that, she's asking you, bro. She's trusting you. That's hot, right? Like explicit communication is hot, but also there is all these other types of communications going on as well, right? Also, can we talk about how funny the weightlifting scene was just in general? Like, I don't know, for some reason, the idea of them having this super serious conversation in the gym was cracking me up. And also the fact that that gym was the best, like, have y'all been in a college weight room? They look horrible. They are so jankety. Like, I don't think the sports trainers get access to their own, do they? Like, I was like, you know what? I'm glad it didn't look dingy, but, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, those weight rooms that made us all afraid. I mean, I remember being afraid of lifting weights, and I think in part it was just because those rooms were disgusting. Anyway, that just cracked me up. So not only is it the right thing to do to be watching for consent, it makes it harder, period. It makes it sexier. It makes it more likely each person's going to orgasm. It makes it more likely they're going to be willing to explore things, like kinkier things down the line. We certainly see that with Dean and Allie's relationship, don't we? Right? Their first hookups, they're hot in a spontaneous way, but as we see the montage of them, like, hooking up in different places, you can tell it kind of is getting increasingly a little wilder. The dildo in the bathtub scene? Okay, stop. That was so funny. The guy knocks on the door. They're in the front, which I did have the thought. I was like, is that, although Tucker cleans the hell out of the house and cooks the hell out of the house, so actually maybe the tub was clean. This isn't like a normal, like, guys living, like, on a, their black sheets and, like, no headboard situation. But, like, Allie dumping under the water and for some reason handing the pink dildo to Dean. So when Tucker comes in, he's like, it's so funny. But clearly what I'm getting at is they're getting into kinkier and kinkier stuff. And I think a key part of that is that Dean's so big on consent. And so it's able to get to a kinkier place without it being like someone pushed someone too far, boom, blows up the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? It makes it better for all people involved. And then obviously we have to talk about the scene with Garrett and Hannah. When Hannah goes over, the plan being to have Garrett help her orgasm. She's not been able to do this with a guy since she was assaulted. She's wearing that slinky black dress you can tell she feels really uncomfortable in. And I think that's our first example, right? Of like Garrett clocking the situation for consent. Garrett can tell she feels uncomfortable and he's like, do you want to wear any? But like he still appreciated the outfit too, which I think is key. Like it wasn't like, oh, I hate what you're wearing, because she like put an effort to it. And she says, please. So he hands her a t-shirt. He turns around. And you can tell Hannah's still very uncomfortable. She kind of like has like a nervous laugh. And she's like, you're going to see me naked in a minute. Like, you don't have to turn around. And Garrett says, and honestly, he says, I'm not going to see you naked until you're ready for me, until you choose. Like, it's not just like in this moment when she's changing to feel more comfortable, he's going to be like, ooh, a chance to see boobs. It was more important that she was comfortable, and he could tell. And it was very clear that she was uncomfortable, right? And like we all have these lived experiences, and like I do think it's so easy for sometimes people to just be like, oh, but she's here. It's fine, brush past it, I'll just watch anyway. But even with something that small, Garrett's like, no, that's not how we're gonna play it, right? And that's important, obviously, because Hannah's a survivor of assault. But that same level should be given to anyone. Like someone looking physically uncomfortable, whether you have that context or not, is a period. Do you know what I mean? It's a complete sentence. You don't need to know their history. And so that I thought that was so hot because like it helps like take her out of her head, right? And then obviously it heats up pretty fast after his really awkward little dance, set in the mood. He's so funny. I think that like that humor helped like take her out of her head. It's getting hot, it's getting steamy. And then there's this moment and you watch it in her body. It's very clear when it changes for her. When she suddenly got triggered, she got scared mid hookup. And Garrett's like, whoa, what's wrong? And she's like, no, it's fine. Because that's such an easy thing to do. It's hard to, I would imagine, especially with something like being triggered, right? But again, there was a nonverbal communication going on where she had tensed. She wasn't kissing back very much. And so Garrett's like, no, let's do it different. And then by him being able to like slow things down, she's able to be like, this is what always happens, blah, 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 blah. And then we get the hottest moment in TV history where he's like, I have this other idea. Why don't you make yourself come? She's like, I don't prove anything. She's like, I do that all the time. And he's like, do you? Prove it. Them just sitting across from each other like, holy crap. Okay, Garrett. Points for creativity, honestly. And what a good way to like show that like it doesn't always have to go right to whatever your end act in mind is. Like it's a journey, right? And that physical intimacy between them, like they both say how hot it is. Like Garrett, who we know is a man whore, hooks up all kinds of fuck bunnies and stuff. He literally is like, that was so hot, right? And we see this thing where like after she leaves, he's like, dang. And he's talking to his studies the next day, and he's like, I have feelings for her. I don't want her to leave. He like finally clocks what's going on, which was honestly iconic, by the way. Like these super serious hockey players, and then one of them is like, well, you've been talking about this the whole practice. Clearly you like her. And Garrett's like, fuck, you're right. So iconic. But it's because like, and they hadn't even fully slept together, because it doesn't always have to be about that. Do you know what I mean? To still be a really fun experience. Speaking of it being a bunch of hockey players, I do find it interesting because we see Garrett, to be fair, is hooking up with one girl for a long time at the beginning of the show. We get the sense that the whole semester he's been hooking up with this one girl, so a month and a half, 2 months. Dean hooks up with everybody. In one scene, it was going to be 2 girls. Also, freaking iconic on their part to when he got distracted and there was stuff going on in the house, which was Allie. Them being like, we don't need him. That was so funny. Because yeah, you don't need him. Period. Period, queen. Love that. Also showed that they were actually into the girl thing, not just doing it because the hockey player had suggested it. Do you know what I mean? But like, I love that even when we're seeing these glimpses of hookup culture in this kind of like, I know it's like just jockey, but it kind of reminded me of like a frat house, maybe a bit. How hook up and party they were, except for the fact that Tucker cooks like a freaking icon. That's like its own thing. I mean, we had the hazing with the fruit, but it was so low key and so funny. But I love that even as we're having this hookup culture conversation kind of happening in the show, it's still always very consensual. Hookup culture can often come off very unconsensual, but Garrett was always up front with that girl that like it was super casual. Like he wasn't lying to get her in bed. And you can tell that he genuinely wasn't putting out a bad vibe. Now, I do think he was an asshole a little bit. Like, I think the way he shot her down, because she was trying to like negotiate changing their thing. And he was just like, well, that's not what we agreed to. It's like, well, no shit. And she says that. She's like, yeah, okay, I know, but now I want to change it. And he kind of was a dick, if we're being honest, the way he handled it. But what I loved about it is that it was very clear that he had never like been like weirdly like using her for like emotional labor or like putting out signals that like it was more than what it was. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't like, I think that can happen a lot in hookup culture where it's like, oh, we're casual. Like this doesn't mean anything. It's a situationship. Then he's hitting you up all the time. He's texting you about his day or she, you know what I mean? And like next thing you know, you're like, wait, then why were you putting out all these like really serious signs? You know what I mean? And so I do think sometimes it can be easy to do that. And so Garrett being upfront with that is amazing. Dean maybe even more so though. Dean, we see Dean hook up with a bajillion different women, like I said, including the two almost hook up. And he, our consent king, as I'm dubbing him, he never lies to get them in bed. He's not pretending that they're going to be a relationship. He's not making promises. He's not, obviously everyone knows who he is, so it's not like he's like lying, he's a doctor or something. And I think like so often in media and in real life, when we think of hookup culture and kind of like this frat boy mentality, like I have certainly seen things where guys are suggesting to other guys to lie about their intentions, to lie about political affiliations, to lie about who they are, maybe even a name or what they're looking for. And that is not consensual. And so you can still be hooking up. No one's against hookups. That's fine. Get the bag. Do you know what I'm saying? But like, what's not okay is if you are putting on a false face in order to have someone hook up with you. If you're, you know, you go out a few dates with someone, you're lying, you're saying like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a relationship and really you never were. You sleep with them and then ghost them. You knew what you were doing. They consented. The thing they consented to is no longer what was happening. Well, it was never what was happening, right? Because like if you're saying I'm, you know, I like, you know, classic example, like Barney Stinson and How I Met Your Mother. So she thinks she's hooking up with a doctor who's looking for a relationship because that's what he tells her. And he has all these, in some cases, websites and whatever to back that up. That's what she consented to. So it being some random guy that lied to her about, that's not what she consented to. And so it makes the whole thing non-consensual. So I love seeing this depiction of hookup culture in like a healthy way, in a non-judgy way. Like we're not judging anyone for sleeping around, the puck bunnies or otherwise. I will say, when they first said puck bunnies, I was like, is that kind of a slur though? Do you know what I mean? But I think you could tell there was respect for them ultimately. As funny as that name was, I do think there was respect for the puck bunnies. And like no one's like been calling them slutty. No one's like implying anything about loot. Like those kind of verbiage and like attitude was never shown. Outside of the like romantic relationships and hookups going on, like sort of the sexual consent going on in the show, we also see consent happening all over the place, right? For example, drinking. Drinking in our culture, Americans drink a lot. I was just reading an article in The Atlantic, I'll leave it alone. And to be fair, this was actually like a year ago, just reading. LOL. That American drinking habits are like increasing and they're higher than other countries in terms of like how much we drink, how much alcohol we consume. Like, yes, there's drinking going on. I'm not saying there's not in other countries, but the amount they're drinking when they drink is a little less. And so for some reason in America, if someone, God forbid, someone says, hey, no, I don't want to drink. You know what I mean? I could tell you from personal experience, people don't handle that well. But in this world, and particularly the people that are the characters in the show, they respect the hell out of people for their drinking choices. We see this with Allie and Hannah very soon into the show. Hannah doesn't drink in public. Anything. Like anything. Any drink that can be tampered with, she's not touching. So it's not even just alcohol, technically. And they're all at that party that Allie's dragged Hannah to because she's gonna run into Justin, where she gets a drink poured on her. Actually, that was really rough. That was a rough day. I felt so bad for it being a white shirt too. No, no. I also love how the people that sloshed it on her, no, really. But isn't that how it always goes? Back on point. One of the friends is like, oh, we'll drink something to like help give Hannah courage. And Allie's like, no, she doesn't drink, remember? Because of her friend from high school. And I love that it's like, first of all, Allie's like, don't be pressuring my girl. Why don't you remember her boundaries? You know? And then we see this throughout the show because Garrett, Hannah's like, no, I don't drink at parties. And Garrett's like looking for something for her because he doesn't realize, like, I think if he had come with a red Solo cup of Hawaiian punch, he also wouldn't have drank that. Do you know what I'm saying? But he's looking for something which is sweet for her to drink because he's trying to understand her boundary. Shout out to John Logan. He clocks what it's actually about. He's like, what did she say? And Garrett repeats it. And he's like, try this because it's closed. He's like, it's safer. Clock's exactly what it's actually about. But even when Garrett goes back over to her to hand her the drink, he's like, he respects that, like, she still might not want to drink, even if it's covered, because he doesn't know for sure her reasoning. And so when he's like, hey, I got this, maybe. But if not, like, he really truly is not putting any judgment on her or pressure on her to drink. He's just offering her options within the framework she's given him. And I love that because I think, like, in real life, sometimes people can be like, let me tell you, I used to have this rule where it's like, I drink only at Disneyland. Specifically the Star Wars bar. There's a drink I'd get there. And let me just tell you, people are so mean about it. They will push and push and push and push and push. You would think, for some reason, it's like everyone's biggest thing if you won't drink, and they'll literally keep pushing until you give in. Now that I'm a little older, a little wiser, I realized that those same people never respected my consent anywhere in my life. Because alcohol is still, anything is still my bodily autonomy. If I'm saying, I don't do this, and you're choosing to badger me about it, you're coercing me. And so I love seeing how, like, the characters were so understanding in this show. When Garrett eventually brings up drinking again when they're in a bar, he's like, I could watch her drink. Like, since that's what it's about, we could work around it. But it's still, like, not, like, there's still no judgment. If she really said, I can't do it, like, I don't want to. If it was like, I don't want to, but where he knew she liked drinking, you know what I mean? And I am obsessed with that. I was saying something to someone once, and I said, my body, my choice. And again, it wasn't about sex, but they were like, this asshole literally, like, made a whole face and was like, that's not what that's for. Okay, but let me just tell you, okay, from a slightly older Gen Zer, if they don't listen to your boundaries outside of the bedroom, or even like friends, if they don't listen to your little boundaries, like whether or not you're drinking, which, like, they won't listen to your boundaries on the bigger things, or the things that are like even more putting you at risk. Also, it's a crazy thing to coerce someone on, where it's literally a mind-altering substance. I'm almost like, maybe it's because people feel guilty about their own journey. I don't know. It's wild. Just listen to people's opinions on their own bodies. Period. I love when Hannah got into pina coladas, though. That was so fun. We see this in Allie's friendship, too, because consent in emotional intimacy is such a thing. And I think that's why their friendship is so solid. I know we love this show for the men. A lot of what we love is the relationship between Dean and Allie. especially with the great underscoring. But we have to talk about the friendship between Allie and Hannah, right? Allie clocks really soon in that Hannah's friend from high school that was drugged and then assaulted wasn't a friend, that it was actually. And so Allie never pushed her on it though. And so when Hannah goes to tell Allie, and Allie's like, oh, honey, it was such a beautiful scene. She's like, you're the friend. I always knew. I just was waiting for you to tell me, you to be ready. And the only reason she tells her in that moment is because, yeah, Hannah's trying to tell her and struggling, and Allie clocks that. And when you rewatch the show, which I have done now, I'm about to start my third rewatch. When you rewatch the show, it's clear Allie knew the whole time. Like going back to that scene with that party at the very beginning, where Allie's like, no, she doesn't drink, remember? You can tell she knew the friend was Hannah. And I think it's so beautiful that she didn't push Hannah on it, because that consent and even emotional intimacy is important. Like Allie knew, but she knew that Hannah, by allowing Hannah to talk about it the way she wanted to, because it was clear she had told Allie a bunch of the horrible things that had happened to her friend being her. And I think like it being in that framework allowed her to talk about it before she was ready to say it was me. And Allie clocked that. And so and instead of pushing her and being like, was it actually you, babe? Which still could have been coming from a loving place, but she doesn't do that. She just fully respects her friend enough to be like, we're going to just take it as far as she wants to take it, because this is clearly a hard thing. Right? And so like, even in emotional intimacy, I think consent is so key. And like Allie watching for that from Hannah, like clocking her cues on when she was ready to tell. Okay, this is like a hot take, but one of the hottest parts of the entire show in like a really weird way. Garrett, well, first of all, this is not about our consent theme, but when Garrett almost kills the guy on the hockey ice, I'm obsessed. The way that was filmed, I honestly can't believe Hannah showed up to that rink. Like, as a survivor, I'll tell you what I wanted. Like, that was wild. That was such a big sacrifice on her part to show up to the rink. And it was so powerful that she came to support Garrett. And I've seen some discourse online of people being like, whoa, she could have texted him, whatever. And I don't think they realized she was in fight or flight. We literally, when she finds out he's going to be there, her abuser, we see her run to nowhere. She's just running. She's in fight or flight. The next day, I think she's in freeze. And so like, she physically probably couldn't tell. It's, I don't know if you've heard of selective mutism before. It's something that happens to trauma survivors. Hannah's isn't as severe, but I definitely think there's like a choking up. Like, it's a physical thing. There's literally, like therapists that like, and researchers that research this, because it's like a physical thing. It can physically be impossible to speak or text or whatever. Like, it's like a whole, the parts of your brain that do that shut off. Anyway, but then now she's there. Garrett's on the ice. He had seen that she wasn't doing okay. Didn't know what's going on. And that son of a bitch hockey player. And it just goes to show when you're a bad person, like how he was always like hurting people on the ice for no reason, the abuser. And then of course it makes sense he did something like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Garrett, when his face, like when the kid says a slur against Hannah, and he looks over at Hannah, and then he just boom. I mean, it was hot. I get why it wasn't the move for Hannah. I get why it was upsetting, but also, like maybe we could have planned it out a little better how we attacked him, but also, I didn't not love it. Do you know what I'm saying? That was hot. But he's getting in trouble for that. They've broken up. They blew up horrifically. He's getting in trouble for that. It's going to affect his hockey career. And Garrett still, even when the coach pushes him again, doesn't say why he beat the kid up. Even with his teammates and whatever, everyone's kind of like hates him, kind of justifiably, right? Like he's like messing up all their stuff. He doesn't tell the story. In fact, he's like, it's not my story to tell. Like, doesn't even say, oh, it's about Hannah. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's so important because, again, it's a consent thing. Like, Hannah, that's her deep truth. You can't just go speaking it for her, even to get yourself out of something. And I think the fact that he understands that and would hold that even when they're not together, that shows how good of a man he is. And honestly, really valid too, because like no one in her hometown believed her, right? The courts dismissed it despite the fact that she was drugged and 15 years old. So why the fuck would some random hockey people believe it? We all want to think that people will believe survivors, but we have the stats on it. And Hannah especially has that lived reality of like, this didn't go well. So yeah, why would she bring that to Brian? Not to mention the fact that, yeah, then people treat you differently. There's like all kinds of other things with it too. That was so funny when she told, like, I know it's dark funny, but when she went to tell Garrett for the first time, by the way, speaking of how hard people look at you differently, when she goes to tell Garrett for the first time and she's like, I'm going to tell you a thing and we're going to just breeze past. And then she was like, I was raped. And then she's like, nope, you can't really make that sound light. I thought that was so funny. That line, the delivery, Garrett's face being stricken, but like trying to like respect what she has said. Honestly, amazingly done. Amazingly done. Okay, I have to say, because I spent this long talking about how the theme of this TV show is consent, and I believe it. I believe that's why we all love the show. I really, really, truly do. And I think it's going to have amazing impacts on our society. But we have to talk about the very obvious non-consent in the first opening scene. Hannah, my girl, what was that scene? Like, Garrett, I'm pretty sure, like, they have, like, we see those guys skate in hockey all the time. It actually doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't just skate whenever you want. Like, do they have keys to the rink? You know what I mean? But Garrett's skating, and then he's in the shower. She's doing her, like, opening routine of, like, I think opening the skating rink. So she's stocking things, she's mopping, whatever. She comes in to put the towels into the locker room, but I'm pretty sure Garrett's not supposed to be there. That could happen to anyone, running into seeing him and being like, oh my God. But that's the thing. She didn't do that. Me thinking about it, I did it, but she didn't do that. So it wasn't like she saw him and then was like, oh shit, I looked longer than I should. She stares at him for so long. Like while he's naked. What the fuck is happening? It was deeply problematic and not okay in any way. And it was just, even when he's like, can I help you? Or something. He says something kind of funny and she falls over the thing. She still kind of doesn't look away very fast. I don't know. It was not the move, y'all. It was not the move. And so it's funny because I saw like a bunch of people were having the reaction of, oh my God, his body. I couldn't even enjoy it because I was just like, he's in the shower. I think the reason this sticks out so much in off campus is because, and like even just the fact that these men show emotional maturity and talk about not even just consent, but their emotions, God forbid. That's the true fantasy part about the whole thing is like being emotionally aware and competent. These fictional men, more so than the muscles, that's way more unbelievable, right? But the reason it's so shocking is because so much media still is embedded in our rape culture. Like society has rape culture and our media still has it big time. Me Too did not fix that shit. I still don't know how Game of Thrones is still I understand it. And a bunch of other TV shows about it too, where even it's sort of these gray areas of like, oh, but she like kind of wanted it. Or like, you know, I feel like, and it's almost like giving evil men a playbook sometimes because it's so much of it's so prevalent, rape culture. You really can't, it's not like you could just not watch anything that didn't have it in it. These horrible ideas that lead to like not believing victims and different things like that. And so I do think that's what makes it so shocking and so powerful that Off Campus, such a fun summer blockbuster kind of TV show hit. And that's not the right word then if it's blockbuster, but you know what I mean? Like if we're back in the day and age where TV had like primetime slots, this would have been the prime time. It's such a big deal that I talked about it and it was good. I have been listening to the soundtrack nonstop since. I do have a few skips if I'm being honest. On my only beef, right? If you go to the official playlist, is Hannah singing "The Bitch Is Back," which goes so hard, and then is like in like a really good key. Isn't on the playlist. Like they didn't release that as like a song, and so huge bummer because she fucking slayed that. I did not vibe really with her showcase song, if I'm being fully honest, but I would listen the fuck to her singing "The Bitch Is Back." She slayed that shit. I did also want to give a shout out to the books. I started reading them. I bought them all after, and it took forever for them to get over. After I binged the show. And I do really think they hold up in terms of like sometimes a book that a TV show or movie is based on, and you're like, oh shit, they changed a lot to make this actually work. Like it was just the premise that worked. But in this case, I think the books really are good, and they're different enough that it's not just like a play-by-play of the TV show. So you're still very interested and very engaged. Like having Allie and Logan in it, and like having more of that duality instead of like focusing on one couple. Loved it. And they changed actually quite a bit in terms of how the beats work, and it made it way more cinematic in the TV show. So I wouldn't say I like one better than the other, but in terms of the theme of consent, it was way less big of a deal. I will say Garrett's fucking hot at it. Garrett is smoking at it. It's just like a slightly different flavor he has. He's like sort of, I don't know, there's some hot moments, and I don't want to spoil it in case you guys want to read, but like there was some hot moments that because of how it was set up are very different than the TV show, where you're like, yes, like kicking your feet, screaming. The actual writing I thought was pretty good. It is very like, which is weird because like, I mean, I might have read the title page, but it felt so 2016. Like they're watching like Breaking Bad, you know what I mean? Which actually didn't make any sense for her as a sexual assault survivor, because one of the first episodes, he rapes his wife. So whatever. I was like, what? But, so a lot of the references are like super dated, and even the way they talk was very 2016. You know what I'm saying? But so I'm glad it was good they updated all of that. But it is fun. So if you had a lot of fun watching the TV show, if you've been binging it, I'd recommend trying the books. This is a case where I do think they're still fun and different, and where they're kind of setting things up a little differently. I don't think it will like ruin the rest of the TV show for you. Like as we get into Dean and Allie's season, which I personally am so Allie being a theater kid. I mean, I can't just tell you how much I'm eating. I was obviously a theater kid. That representation of how they were singing in the musicals and geeking out together, and even like Drunk Shakespeare, which by the way sounds like a blast. I went to too religious of a place for, but Drunk Shakespeare sounded amazing. But okay, here's what's fun. I was at Midsummer's Night back in college, and I also was Tatiana. And let me just tell you, I have never felt like such an it girl as the fact that Allie had the same role. Like, I know that's like so stupid, but like, it's kind of fun when you're like, oh, especially because like at the time, for some reason, I really wanted to be one of the love interest characters instead of Tatiana, who's like the fairy queen that like changes the guy into a donkey. Yeah, I was kind of bummed at the time, and now I'm like, no, that was the better role. But my costume wasn't nearly as fierce, as you can imagine, because her costume was insane. I predict that will be a big costume Halloween this year. It'll be interesting because we also had The People We Vacation With, that Netflix book to movie adaptation. We're there in New Orleans. She has that blue haircut. I'll put a picture on the YouTube video. It'll be interesting to see which costume, like, you know what I mean? Like when you're like, this is going to be the costume everyone wears for Halloween. That's how I felt, like such a fun little outfit. But I don't know, Allie's Midsummer look I could see, or like even the J-Lo dress, I could see really popping the fuck off this Halloween. So it'll be fun to see kind of what people are doing with that. Anyway, let me know your favorite hot moments from the show down below. You can disagree with me, argue with me, whatever. So tell me if there's anything specific you want to see. But the 16-inch blue French horns are back in stock. Just very recently in there. So that's exciting. And then there was lots of new stickers and happiness bells and miniatures and fairies and fire sprites and things. I was gonna reach for it, but I forgot. And that I've dropped on the website. So if you've missed any of those, go check it out on FanCornerCreations.com. Also, if you haven't read my book yet, The Girl Raised by a Dragon, please do. If you have read it, please give it a review on Goodreads. I know there's been quite a few of you who have bought it from me, but not yet quite reviewed it, which I get. You're like, oh, you have to make an account. It's like a whole thing. But review me on any of the review sites would be amazing. It would be great. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have fun binging off campus again. I know I sure am going to. And don't put any spoilers for the next few books down below. Put spoiler alert first if you're going to do it, in case people are up in the comments. And then also, I just started book 2, so I don't want to be spoiled on anything either. Until next time, I hope you have a very magical day.